Hey, what's going on, everybody? Today is January 30th. You are listening and watching the Daily AI Show live. And today we're going to be talking about what we know, what we think we know, hints, rumors, allegations, and things left unsaid about GPT-5. So today we got almost the whole crew. We got Junmi, Beth, Carl, Andy, and I'm Brian. And we're just going to kind of go through what we know so far. And here's the deal. It hasn't been released. If for anybody listening to this and maybe doesn't follow all this AI stuff, you're like, GPT-5, I thought we were on 4. We are. Here's another thing we don't know. We don't know when GPT-5 will be released. It may not even be released this year. It could be next year or beyond. However, what do we know? Well, what we're here to talk about is what Sam Altman has been actively going out there. Sam Altman being the CEO of OpenAI. And he's been talking about it. He talked to Bill Gates about it. He was in Davos. He was in a couple other places where he's openly talked about what he feels like GPT-5 will accomplish. And so we can go to kind of infer from there and sort of have a cool conversation about what that means to us. And also he dropped some hints about how Sam did about how businesses should be thinking going forward. And maybe we start at the end. One of the things he talked about is, hey, businesses should be focusing more on an AGI mindset. He was almost basically telling people, I think it was at Davos, Beth, you saw that too, correct me if I'm wrong, where he was like, I wouldn't limit your thinking to what GPT-4 could do. I would be thinking past that. So like we were talking yesterday, you don't end up painting yourself into a corner. So what do you guys think? What is the best, I don't know, rumors or things that you heard Sam say about GPT-5 that you're the most excited about?
Junmi and Beth breathe at the same time. I think that what excites me the most is the multimodality. Is that it is potentially going to be able to engage in video and audio, and not in terms like right now you can speak to Chat GPT, and it transcribes it into text, and it goes and it deals with it as a text, and then it responds, and then it transforms that into voice, because it was trained as a text only system, and the audio has been put on top of it. GPT-5, my understanding is that it's been trained multimodality. So that is an exciting thing for me. Like, what are you as a native audio speaker or a native video intaker, communicator? I don't know.
Specifically, you'll be able to upload a video. It'll watch and listen to the video and understand everything about the images and the audio on that video and respond to that directly without you having to do any transcription or, importantly, you can upload an image today to GPT-4, but you can't upload a video. That will be an impressive addition in GPT-5.
Right. Yeah. So it's like, hey, I don't know that it'll be called FaceTime, but I'm going to FaceTime with my GPT assistant, and we're going to have this conversation, and it's going to say, all right, you hesitated there. What's happening in your head? Right. Yeah, or something like that.
You look puzzled.
Right. Well, just being able to interpret your facial, body language, all of those kinds of things, I think will be a huge benefit. I'm most excited about the video interpretation, having that part of the multimodal capabilities. I'd like to see where this expands into their other offerings like Video Dolly, those kinds of things, because that's once you have that base function, then it can kind of expand into what their other offerings are, because they've interconnected all of their different products up to this point. So I'm looking for that next step. And I think later on in the week, we have a review of Runway ML. And so just the video and AI sphere is kind of what I'm most excited about.
So real quick though, Junmi, before you go on, let's break that out a little bit, because we said video probably on twice in both of those. And I think it's maybe worth referencing that we're really talking about two different types of video processing. and for two different end uses, right? We mentioned something like a runway ML or a there's so many of them. I won't Pixlr and all the other ones that are out there. Pick whatever all the other ones are that do, like you said, image, and instead of creating a static image in DALL-E, they're consumably or reasonably would be that we would have it creating 5-second, 10-second, 30-second video clips. Whereas now you can say, go ahead and extend that 30 seconds more. And it's still a prediction system, and it's still guessing at what that next scene might look like or extrapolating, so on and so forth. And then, but Beth, you also talked about video, but I think that's more from like the multimodal side, where instead of it just being text in, text out, it can be voice in, voice out. And Andy, you mentioned something that I think is really important. I just want to make sure we touch on in case we leave video here for a second, is I think about all the ways that it could help in sales. So I work for a sales consulting company. So I deal with sales all the time. It's always on my brain, trying to help sales representatives. I'm literally doing that right before this show. I'll be doing right after this show. It's what I'm working on today. And I think about how amazing it's going to be when it's not just a transcript that we can get from a discovery call summary or a demo call in sales, but now we're able to hear the vocal tones and inflections. And to me, that's not just like a 1 + 1 = 2. That's just like 1 + 1 = 17 or something like that, because now it enables this potentially this model to go in and say, oh, I can read the transcript and I can see and I can infer where the call might have gone off tracks. You know, the sales rep was so thinking about the next thing they wanted to say that they missed some really key piece. Okay, I can already solve for that problem today with a transcript. But there's a big difference between that and then also looking at a video or even listening to the audio of that call and listening for how voices start to trail off. If it's video, maybe it'll be how eyes start to dart around. These things start to already exist, but it'd be really cool if they happen in a true multimodal fashion. I don't know that GPT-5 will be this powerful, of course, but these are things that I'm definitely looking forward to. So I just wanted to maybe throw that out there because, like, I think there's like two different things, right? Two different sides of video, if you will.
And I want to clarify, we were imagining what it would be like to do a FaceTime with the AI. GPT-5 won't have that real-time interaction yet, right? That's for GPT-6 or 7.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree with you. That's probably not in the next release. That seems like a big jump from where we are today. Maybe, but who knows?
But I think there's a very big jump that's going to happen that I want to get to, and that surrounds this question of, is Sam Altman teasing, over promising by suggesting AGI? And that's a big question. But so in response to that, I want to say that it is reputed that GPT-5 will use a technique called graph neural networks. Graph neural networks are different from just a standard deep neural network in that there is a representation of different modules in the graph and what their interrelationship is. We've talked about a mixture of experts model, and we believe that GPT-4 is a mixture of experts model, and it has a way to basically understand when you prompt it which of the models ought to be the one that responds to that. A graph neural network not only has smaller subnetworks that are experts in different areas, but it has attention mechanisms that can direct the conversation internally, its own internal monologue, and say, okay, I know about this subject over here, so I'm going to engage with that component of the graph. And that graph, that part of this deep neural network is connected to this other one over here. So I'm going to weave together my response based on those elements of this graph. The graph actually captures relationships among different areas of knowledge within the representation. And so there's also a concurrent notion of what's called representational learning. And that's an AI technology that is really advanced. By the way, those are the things, those graph neural networks are the ones that can understand protein interactions, and do that. It's not just brute force analysis. It's actually looking at which protein interactions are clustered in these areas, and those elements of the graph are the ones that it pursues. efficiently to go after it. So these are all capabilities that are human-like. Like we say, okay, well, I know something about this over here in my memory, and I'm going to try to bring that memory forward. And that's a kind of an unconscious process to me anyway. You know how when you can't remember a name and then suddenly a few minutes later it pops into your head. Well, that's the unconscious process of exploring the graph that's in your brain to figure out where you have knowledge of that sort of thing that you can't go access directly. You can't get it directly. Well, that's a sort of the way I'm thinking about what it means to approach AGI, and it's going to be delivered in large part, I think, because of the implementation of graph neural networks and advanced attention mechanisms in GPT-5. Remember that GPT-5 is the result of an enormous investment. OpenAI, when it was delivering GPT-3, was incredible, but now it's expanded in its reach and its capacity and its investment, and AI is accelerating that process. So I think we're really going to touch on the beginnings of AGI, and that's what excites me the most.
And just a quick follow-up question on that, Andy. Do these graph neural networks you're talking about, I'm assuming they exist? Are they being used in any small use cases at this point? And if so, is it healthcare? Where are they using it?
Here's a simple example of it. An AI that analyzes social networks, the interrelationships among multiple, individual nodes, which are humans, that could be used for determining doing for defense purposes, trying to figure out, who's related to who out there in the world of intelligence. We're trying to analyze what Hamas is doing over there. A graph neural network is probably applied to those kinds of social network analysis.
Got it.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
That's really interesting.
Well, I like. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Carl.
Oh, yeah. I think Andy related to that, where I think we'll see the biggest jump is reasoning of where GPT-5 is, and more so when remember Andre Karpathy talked about system 1 versus system 2 thinking. I think we're going to start getting into system 2 thinking, where we don't, when we add the instructions, think through this step by step. It's not it'll actually do it consistently and in a manner that is, we don't have to have these more defined prompts. I think it'll get what we're talking about much better. And so that's the one I'm looking forward to the most, because then you can set up a lot of different elements and maybe it'll help bridge that gap of more people understanding how to use these systems, or give them the path to use it more than a lot of people are using it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was definitely on my list for sure. Reasonability. Is that what you were going to say as well, Jimmy? I'll go after you. Go ahead.
Well, I just wanted to jump off the point for general intelligence is that Sam Altman, especially in the Davos interview, he mentioned that that's still, they doubled down on it. Like that is still their focus, is still doing general intelligence. But one little thing that, and they didn't really cover it too much, but he mentioned that the next step that they're kind of focusing on right now is less about training data, right? Which kind of takes away the focus of like moving to GPT-5 or when they're going to start moving towards that. Is they want to be able to display trusted, branded, high quality content at inference. And this kind of goes back to his point of focusing on the product side of things. So when we take this into account, I'm wondering, in terms of when we're going to see GPT-5 and what we're going to see in it, that might be pushed down the road a little bit, because he seemed to indicate that he wants to improve what's going on right now, and if the focus is he wants high quality branded content at the time of inference, then that doesn't sound like GPT-5 is being trained, right? Or it doesn't sound like they're spending as much time on that. I could be reading into it too much, but I picked that out of there in particular because it does seem to indicate what seems to be his focus, at least for OpenAI. Not to mention,
I can add something to that, which is there's in psychology there's an area of exploration which is about human cognition. So we're trying to approach the human capabilities of reasoning and exploration. And the idea of how our brain works is it's not purely reliant on the internal knowledge base that you already have learned, but it has the world and all of the tools and technologies that we have as an external memory. And so does now GPT-5 with its connections to web search and whatever permissions are allowing it to access proprietary data. So in the training sets, if you will, or in the access range that GPT-5 will have, it will have access to certain subscribed external memory that it can access at inference time. And when we say inference time, we mean at the moment you give it a prompt and ask it a question, it's doing some processing, which will include, as you watch Perplexity do, it's going to go out and retrieve information that's relevant to your question. And that is a key component of this approach to human capabilities, which is not simply to rely on what the existing knowledge base is back to 2023, right? But now to be able to go out and say, okay, to solve this problem, I'm going to send out an agent here from this module in my graph neural network to explore this angle, which I think is relevant, and then assemble all those things back together and deliver the report. That's what we do really as researchers, as human researchers, and that's what GPT-5 and others will be able to do.
Yeah, I think that sort of takes in the idea of what you both are saying, which is one of my notes here on my page here in front of me is personalization. It's something Sam Altman must have said several times is we know our end users, our customers want more personalization. And that started very basically last year with custom instructions. Kind of cool. The custom instructions were both available on the free and the plus side of the account, the paid side of the account, which I'm very grateful for when I work with clients, because so many of my clients don't have the plus side of it. And so that custom instructions was a great way to append onto any particular prompt a small 1,500 character description of what maybe that customer does, or that client did, right? So sales reps in my case. But that's only going to grow. Now, custom GPTs was the next step of that, because now I was not chained to 1,500 characters. I can now create a quick custom GPT, albeit on the paid side. And now I could give it reams of pages of data about my company. I can go somewhere and basically scrape a website. Let's just assume it's my website. And I can take that
for legal purposes.
We'll put that asterisk there. It's mine. It's mine. I can take that information and I can immediately throw that into the back end of a custom GPT, and it's that much smarter for it. So personalization and being more customizable, more about your data. Absolutely. I mean, Sam's already saying it. It's not something we have to guess about. This is definitely coming with GPT-5, and perhaps we'll see that in small increments before then. We'll talk about it more in the news tomorrow, but the @ symbol and what that's doing inside custom GPTs is a form of almost like making it a more personalized experience. It's yet another step towards a agent. And Sam said back on Dev Day that is what we're working towards. And one big step towards agents is personalization. Look like you're going to say something, Andy.
I am, but go on. I'm
he has thinking face. He has thinking hands and thinking face.
You can't see Andy has his thinking fingers. You look like what's his face? Not Smithers. What's his face from The Simpsons? Excellent. Okay, well, if Andy, you're not ready for that, I want to come back really quick because I didn't get a chance with Carl. You talked about reasonability, and I just want to say something that, like Sam said, which was that GPT-4 really has like a childlike understanding. In fact, you can see sort of when you look at, if you're looking at a screen, the thumbnail I created for it was a child with like well, 3, and then maybe like a teenager as GPT-4, and then some AI robot, right, juggling multiple balls in the air. That was sort of what it was for. But he's the one that said, like, GPT-4, I'm paraphrasing, is pretty dumb when it comes to, being reliable with its reasoning. He said something, I'm paraphrasing to the fact of, is if you give it, you get 10,000 answers. One of them will be pretty good, but GPT-4 won't know why. Won't know why that was a good answer, but you'll probably get something good at it. And so I just wanted to bring that back up to Carl, your point, because that was something Sam talked about that I thought was really interesting, was that they're trying to make GPT-5. The goal is to increase its reasoning skills, but also do it that are highly reliable. And I think that was really just an interesting. So, okay, those are my 2 things there. What else?
So this idea of improved reasoning, I think, is related to the graph neural network approach, because if the GNN, as it's called, the graph neural network, understands what the components of its knowledge are and knows how to select those which it can use in response to some query, well, then that's a form of reasoning. Okay, what's relevant here? How do I combine those ideas? And now what I was thinking about before is this other thing that we can do, which is a part of general intelligence in humans, which is continuous learning. So if I start to explore a subject, then I can encode in my memory new relationships and new understandings and hold those representationally in my memory. So I have an ongoing memory that I can train as I'm studying, learning, and doing things. Now, the current generations of large language models don't do this self-training, if you will. But a graph neural network is designed in a way that it can encode new properties that it examines in the graph into a new representational node. So it's creating a new capability on the fly in response to its activities. This is beyond my technical understanding, really, but I can imagine it, and so I'm creating a new node in my own mind about how these things might work.
You're making a connection.
And so I wanted to share that with you, is that I think that GPT-5 probably will be able to do self-directed continuous learning, which further accelerates the process of arriving at average general.
That's a cool idea. I like this idea. I don't know if this is what you're talking about, but it was what made me just think of. I frequently go back to previous chats because I'd already done a lot of work and I want to stay in that chat thread. I'm like, I don't want to re-explain what my goal here is with whatever I'm trying to do. And so it's saved in that chat thread. And for the most part, unless you've uploaded documents and stuff, it's saved there. But what you maybe just think of, Andy, is like, I do that. I leave it for a couple of days. I come back to work on it again. And it's like, hey, Brian, I've been thinking about this while you were gone. And I've come up with some better answers for you. Would you like me to give you a recap and summary of some better ideas how to tackle this problem before you continue on with the same thing? I mean, I don't know if that's possible, but I love that idea that in the background, it's actively trying to help me problem solve, even when I turn my attention away from the computer.
That's the personalization model of that. I was thinking, thank you for adding that nuance to it. The idea that I was thinking about was just that in every single interaction, billions a day, it's learning more and more. And if you come back to it a few hours later, it's smarter than it was before.
Gotcha.
Right?
Yeah.
Right. That's where the combination of the capability of, a brain that is made up of almost an order of magnitude larger number of neurons than ours is able to learn so rapidly that, we just can't keep up.
So this is an interesting thing, because if we separate the act of learning from the content of learning, right? So right now you say, like, don't train on my data. I don't want you to use the conversation that we've had to train. And what that really means is I don't want you to use the data that we are engaging with. But if you have learned a new learning technique in engaging with me. Like, let's say you're my personal trainer, right? And you are not sharing what you do with me with anyone else, but you have learned something in explaining how to do something, and it like 5-timed my ability to do something. That is learning you can carry through to the next client. Now, what does that do in a large language model that can be doing that at like tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of instances at the same time? You don't need to train on my data. You're just getting better because you're engaging with it.
Well, even if we took it down just a little bit smaller than that real quick, and then we can jump on so this is just theoretical
wild speculation.
But no, let's inject this into GPT for Teams. Okay, so like if some date in the future, everybody at Scaled, at the company I work for, there's like 20 plus of us that are full time, and then we have a whole lot of 1099 bench people on the bench. So anyway, you take the 20, and let's just say some date in the future, we're all now actively using the tool ChatGPT for various things through the day, and it's learning and remembering different parts of that. I see that as a potential solution for breaking down silos that we don't intend to exist. It just happens. I start on a thought process and I start working on something in a company. My coworker, of which could be in London, Austin, New York, Texas, like they're all over the place, right? Because we're all not in the same office, so we're not overhearing each other's conversations. But if that's coming up 2 or 3, 4 times, and it's something about a maturity assessment or whatever the case is, and now ChatGPT is able to come back to me and say, this has come up in conversation before. It's not that it's necessarily releasing the back and forth or giving me what my coworker said, but maybe Beth, to your point about the concept of it, of like raising flags and making sure that this gets up and it's made aware before things start happening in silos. Like, oh, you have a coworker who's currently working on a similar project. Would you like me to invite them into this chat? Would you like to facilitate something where this is happening together? That obviously, whether that happens inside ChatGPT or not, a part of GPT-5, I don't know. But that certainly seems like the kind of tools that are taking us towards personalization, but more business personalization, and giving us a tool that we can rely on that's getting smarter.
That's $1 million idea right there. There has to be somebody working on it. And that's this idea of the GPT itself orchestrating the collection of relevant sources, like just as it's going to go out and find these data sources. But now it can look at, okay, who are the human experts who are working on this? I'm going to find them, bring them together, and I'm going to ask them questions.
Yeah.
And teach myself, right?
Yeah. Your AI project manager, essentially.
Do you all remember Sam Altman saying, I can't remember where he said it, whether it was one of the talks, was that I think like I was trying to remember. I see the picture of his face on where it is, but he was saying that everybody should prepare for GPT-5. Like they should be building towards GPT-5 right now, not like how you're currently building. But the thing is, how do you do that? How do you build for GPT-5 when no one knows what that even means? Like how would you?
I think let's use that as a great discussion point as we wrap up, because I think that's a great place to leave off this conversation, which is like, okay, we talked all about all the things, video, both from a multimodal standpoint and also from like a runway ML standpoint. We've talked about personalization. We talked about increased reasonability and reliability, moving towards an AGI mindset, moving towards what they have said is an agent mindset. So if you're a business right now, I think that's a great call out, Carl. If you're a business right now and you're actively thinking about, okay, how do I not paint myself in a corner? What are some of the things you could do today, even if you don't know the answer to what GPT-5 is? What are some things businesses could be doing today to help them be best prepared? And I would say this is not people who are actively coding and creating brand new like apps and stuff. I'm just saying for the general business who's trying to use these tools for efficiency.
Well, quickly, I'd say, something like that Sam said in that Davos interview is, he suggested that you use AI or focus on AI use internally, improving your processes internally, as opposed to, trying to use Gen AI in through your products and things like that. And I think that was a good insight to let everybody know. It's like, that's where you're going to see the biggest improvements. These are things that we talked about in the past. There's nothing new that we're saying here, but I think that's a great way that you can get ready. If that's essentially the question, how do you get your business ready for GPT-5? Right? And we've talked about AI literacy. We've talked about making sure your data is clean. All of these steps are ways that you can prepare your business for GPT-5. Because one of the other things he mentioned was, they asked him, what is the one thing that he wants everybody to know or focus on, and that's getting infrastructure. He sees a huge influx and increase of usage, right? That's integration on every single level. So he's talking about the shovels and the pickaxes. He's talking about the chips and infrastructure to build to meet all of those needs. So we're just going to see an exponential need on the hardware side to advance on the software side. So I think that's what it really comes down to is getting your internal systems improved by AI, so that when 5 launches or when the next thing launches, or whether it follows some new Moore's law where it doubles every few months or whatnot, that's the kind of focus that you need for AI.
Right.
Now, are you talking about Moore's Law or McKinsey Moore's Law?
Moore. What has an S?
One has
an O, 2 O's and an S, and the other, right. So I actually think that, to a certain extent, what you're doing to prepare your business for 5 is what you're doing to prepare your business for 4. Because if we look at 5 as being better, faster, bigger, and we look at the conversations that we've all had and shared, like, oh yeah, this is a thing that it does, and just watch people's minds be blown. The thing that will make you best positioned to take advantage is if you can get through the blowing mind stuff now, right? Like, engage with it, talk to it, ask it to do crazy things. Maybe it doesn't do it. Maybe you have to rephrase it, but get through that part so that when 5 comes out, you're really like, excellent. This is going to blow my mind, but it's not like, holy crap, we're not in Kansas anymore. Like, we're just in a different part of Kansas. It's a better part of Kansas.
Well, all I would add to that is what you kind of said, Jimmy, and what you're saying, Beth. Well, Beth, to your answer, like after the show, go put on Kanye West Stronger and just jam out to that and go create new things. Like, bigger, better, faster, stronger. Let's go. Jimmy, you mentioned about infrastructure. I want to mention Sam Altman did talk about how he felt like the global push for AGI and the desire and demand for that is what push us into things like actually getting fusion energy and stuff like that. So really, really cool. And I like the idea, the analogy of like, if one of these moon landers identified diamonds on the moon, you bet your butt we'd figure out, how to get the moon faster, mine it, like we'd figure it out as a society because it would be something that we want. There's some value out of it. So I like that idea of what he said about like, hey, this is something that the world is probably going to want and want more of, which could put the money where it needs to be to get over the hump of some of these things like new energy sources and things like that. So really cool. Any other last thoughts before we wrap it up?
Yeah, I would just add that the incredible advances that we are imagining that GPT-5 can provide also invoke the weighting equation. Like, one of the things you can prepare for is start learning about where the trajectory is going with AI. It takes either, really practiced consultants or, a lot of personal research to understand where it's likely going. And it may be that you want to intersect that trajectory at some point down the line, understand where that is. It might not be, hey, we've got to jump on it right now. It could be that, we need to put this on in our OKRs for the 3rd and 4th quarter of 2024.
Yeah, I agree. All right, we'll wrap it up there. Tomorrow we got the news. Thursday we're talking about developments in cancer treatment and research and how AI is making a huge impact there. Friday, as Jimmy mentioned, we will be doing our review of Runway ML. Very, very cool software and app and how, technology. So we'll be talking about that as well. And then we got a whole lot of stuff coming up next week. That's it. We'll see you tomorrow, the last day of the month. Until then, guys. Bye.
Happy Tuesday.